You said there are two thumbs.
Yeah.
And there's
this guy.
me. No, you said me. You said there are these two thumbs, and there's me.
Yeah.
You said it, I didn't.
Me.
Me. Good.
Yeah, but
And then I asked you, who's me? Is me just a complex biochemical reaction, or does me involve a free will, a rational mind, self-reflection, the ability to know myself, to judge myself?
Well, for example, in Matthew, Jesus is presented as sort of a continuation of the Jewish legalistic tradition. He says, I haven't come to remove one stroke of pen from the law or whatever, and, I haven't, he basically emphasizes over and over the importance of adherence to the old Jewish laws passed down by Moses. Whereas, for example, in Luke, I think John too, but I know in Luke for sure, Jesus is more portrayed as saying that, not necessarily that the old law doesn't matter, but that he's come to complete and fulfill the law and provide a new covenant to the people, which is why we don't have to follow all the old rules about not, wearing clothes made out of more than one fabric or whatever. That if you read closely Matthew versus Luke, you'll find over and over and over examples of that thematic contradiction. It's clear that whoever wrote Matthew and whoever wrote Luke, which probably weren't St. Matthew and St. Luke respectively, but whoever they were, probably had a very different idea about sort of who Jesus was and what his message was.
Okay, you're raising the very difficult issue of faith and works, grace and works. And you're right, that's a problem. But I think if you study carefully enough, what becomes clear is faith without works is dead, but we're not saved by our works. God saves us by his grace through faith, but if that faith is genuine, it'll be shown in works. And if that faith is not genuine, we have a word for that person, don't we? Hypocrite. So I think you can see through that one fairly clearly. Christ did not abolish the Ten Commandments. He redefines, he reinterprets them, contradicting the Pharisees in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthews 5, 6, and 7. But never once did Jesus say, oh yeah, the commandment, thou shalt not murder? Forget about it. Go ahead and murder. No. But what he does point out is, it's not enough not just to murder, you better not hate. And it's not enough just not to hate, you better actually love. And by the way, when you guys love, you better forgive. You better forgive those who hurt you badly. So there is absolutely no contradiction between the Ten Commandments and Jesus. Now, does Jesus and the followers of Christ in the first century point out that a person does not have to follow the 613 Levitical laws? Yes, that's correct. Did Jesus claim that he fulfilled the ceremonial law out of Leviticus? Yes. If there's life after death, would you be interested in it?
Not really.
Why not?
Because I'd be tired.
Be tired?
Yeah.
All you gotta do is take a nap, man. You won't be tired.
I'm pretty tired.
Well, no,
Really?
I live in this country. I live in this country.
You're tired right now?
You actually lived your life fully, had fun while you were here.
Yeah, what's the point of keeping on living if you've had a full, successful life? Why do I have to keep living? I mean, I think...
You don't have to.
Because what I'm saying is, like...
You don't have to keep living.
Yeah.
But why aren't you committing suicide?
Because I haven't had a family yet and I don't got a job.
Well, why keep sucking wind if...
There's also more entertaining things to do while you're still alive. I mean...
Well, if life's a blast, wouldn't you be interested in life continuing on?
No, because I'd not be old. And then, it wouldn't be as fun.
All right, well, if God could give you a resurrection body that wouldn't get tired and wouldn't grow old, it would be strong and healthy. Would you be interested in that?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Okay. So, you tell me that the purpose of your life is to get a job and to have a family. Okay, why have you concluded that that's the purpose of human existence? To get a job and
have... the purpose of human existence. My buddy Eric here, he might want to do something else. And these people, they obviously don't want the same things as me. But for me, all I really want out of life is to get a job, be successful, and have a family. Be productive.
I don't know about do something productive for the others around you, and then, but also have some kids to continue on your whatever morals that you want to continue on, and then you can also do their own thing as well.
Okay. So if doing something for others really is key to your life, doesn't that mean that love is real, compassion for others is real?
We weren't denying that.
Yeah, that's not what I. Yeah.
Where does that love, where does that compassion come from?
Me.
Who is me? Is me just a biochemical reaction? Or does me have a free will and a soul and a personality?
Now it's got two thumbs and it's this guy.
Okay, good. Is there something to this guy more than the two thumbs?
Hands, feet.
Is there a you? Is there a me? Or is there just a chemical reaction?
No, it's this. I'm not sure where you're going with this.
Is there a real you?
Yeah, it's right here.
Well, I see your body. But is there more to you than your body? Is there a person inside that body with a free will, with the ability to love or to hate? Is that real? Or is that just a biochemical reaction?
I'm not sure what you're going at. It's
all right, it's real simple. I'm convinced that you have a body.
Yeah.
But I'm convinced that when you said there's me,
Yeah, it's this guy.
you're in touch with reality. There's more to you than just your body. You have a personality, you have a soul.
Yeah.
You have the ability to love or to hate,
Yes.
to do good or to do evil.
Yes.
There's a you.
Yes.
Great.
So we agree.
Exactly, we
I
agree.
win.
Now, the only way there can be a you that goes beyond the physical components of your body is if there's a creator, a personal creator.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! That's a big jump right there. I didn't let you go that far. You almost had me. You almost had me. I'm gonna stop you right there. Now, how did you make that leap? How'd you jump? How'd you jump? I missed it. I must have blinked my eye or something.
You agreed with me that there is more to you than just your handsome body.
No. The handsome body's still here, and I agree that all the love and hate is in here. But I didn't say there's anything more than that.
Yes, you did. You said there are two thumbs.
Yeah.
And there's
This guy.
me. No, you said me. You said there are these two thumbs, and there's me.
Yeah.
You said it, I didn't.
Me.
Me. Good.
Yeah, but
And then I asked you, who's me? Is me just a complex biochemical reaction,
ridiculous.
or does me involve a free will, a rational mind, self-reflection, the ability to know myself, to judge myself?
Oh, I got you. Those are the same thing. There we go. Because of the biological
biochemical reactions have a lot of different variabilities within them. There's so many variables that there's practically impossible to calculate exactly how one reaction will affect another. I mean, that's true.
Sure.
But the thing is, though, is that one affecting another will affect another. So that's how people can have so many different varied reactions to things if they depending upon, hey, you can have one different part, just like someone slightly different, and then you'd have a different reaction.
Okay, but you see, the question is there a me in this body, or is there just chemical reactions?
I believe those are the same thing. Because of the chemical reactions, I am who I am.
Okay, then if I do something mean to your friend,
Yeah.
and if you ask me why, and I say because my biochemical reactions forced me to, do you buy that?
It's not necessarily that your biochemical reactions are forcing you to do anything. It's that your specific, like your how you base your.
I know it's hard. All right, now, you see, sir, my point is this. If you reduce yourself to simply the chemicals,
I'm not reducing myself to the chemicals. I am who I am because of the chemicals. I am not just the chemicals.
you can see what you're saying. There's I. Is there really an I, or is there just a chemical reaction?
I just said that there's not just I. I mean, there's not just the chemicals. I am who I am because of those chemicals.
All right, I agree. Those chemicals are obviously involved.
Yes, they make me who I am. Like my mother and father made me who I am.
All right, if the chemicals make me who I am, then if I do something mean to your friend, and you ask me, why did you do it? And I said, because my chemicals made me do it.
That would be a part of it, but it would also be how you were raised and what environment you were raised in.
Okay? If you ask me, why were you mean to this guy? And I say, because of the way my parents potty trained me and because of my genetic makeup. My environment and my genetic makeup forced me to be mean to him. Would you buy that?
No, because that would be very stupid.
Good. So you believe that there's more to me than just genetics and just the influences of my environment. You believe that there's some type of me, soul, personality.
No. It's how you were raised. It's how you were raised and the genetics.
That's what I said. Come on, man. Listen. I said your genetic makeup and your environment, your training.
That's it.
That's it. Okay, fine. So if I'm mean to him, and I say to you, the reason I was mean to him is because of my genetics and my environmental upbringing. Do you buy that?
Yes.
Okay, good. I don't.
Okay.
If he's mean to you, and I say, hey man, why'd you treat him like dirt? And if he says, I had to because of my genetics.
Well, he didn't have to, he did because he is.
Oh, if all he is genetics and environmental influences, he's not free. He's a robot. He works out his genetic makeup and his environment.
I know you're a robot.
That's what you're saying. See, I don't believe he's a robot. You do, if you think about what you're saying.
Okay. All right. Eric, you're a robot. You are too.
Hey, excuse me. We'll be robots together.
Designer genes demand a designer. Incredibly complex bodies demand a creator. Voltaire, who was no follower of Christ, said, if a watch proves a watchmaker, but the universe does not prove a great architect, then I consent to be called a fool. Voltaire is right. If a watch proves the existence of a watchmaker, then a complex universe has got to point to a creator. Now, this creator who put us together in the first place wants to give us life eternal. And he's shown that by becoming man in Jesus, who lived a sinless life, who bled and died on a cross, and who rose from the dead. And this Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even though he dies. And it's his historical resurrection, sir, that's the evidence that he wasn't blowing smoke. He wasn't jerking people around. He was speaking the truth.
You can, even if you were 100% of the way there to proving God's existence, you are only a fraction of the way there to proving the veracity of Christianity. Why Christians, God?
You bet. And the answer to that is real simple. Because of the lifestyle of Jesus, because of the ethical teachings of Jesus, some of which, sir, you're living out right now in your desire to serve your country, all right?
Much of modern morality predated Jesus.
Well, yeah. Yeah, obviously, God didn't give human beings consciences AD. Obviously, BC, human beings had consciences. Third piece of evidence that you can trust Jesus is the way he died. Nailed to a wooden crossbeam, instead of cursing his enemies, he prays, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Wow. I think you and I respect that, don't we? Forgiving his enemies? That's true tolerance. Fourthly, and most importantly, 3 days after Jesus died, he rose from the dead. And over a period of 40 days, he appears to over 500 people who see him risen from the dead. That's why it would be wise for you and me to trust in Christ. Sir, if you die and rise from the dead, I promise to listen very carefully to everything you have to say. See, it's that resurrection. That's why you got to read the gospel, sir, and ask yourself, does the evidence support Christ rising from the dead? Because if Christ rose from the dead, it's a no-brainer. He's speaking the truth.
I'm an ex-Christian. I'm no longer one because I looked at the evidence.
Okay, you're an ex-Christian, and it's because you looked at the evidence. Please tell me, what did you find?
None. I had to choose between Christianity, what I believed about the world, what I knew about the world, science, or education. One of them is demonstrable today. It's consistently. That's not Christianity.
Okay, sir. You're reacting to a bunch of narrow-minded Christians who say that education is evil, science is evil. That's false. Sir, did you know that?
Rising up from the dead doesn't sound very scientific.
No, that's right. Rising up from the dead is not very scientific. But it's historical. And you can't repeat history in your lab every year at the University of Arizona. Instead, you study the eyewitness testimony of people who saw Jesus risen from the dead. Now, did you know that the 70 out of the first 100 approximately universities and colleges in the United States were begun by committed followers of Christ? So, sir, the Christians that you bumped into that taught you that science and knowledge is evil and Christianity is right, they were making a false dichotomy. 70 out of the first 100 colleges and universities begun in this country were begun by committed followers of Christ, including Harvard, Yale, on and on. William and Mary, all begun by committed followers of Christ. So, sir, please don't believe the lie that you will hear in certain Christian circles in America, I know, because I bump into them, that education science is opposed to faith in Christ. In fact, he's right here. This guy's from China. Last year when I was here, he did not believe in Christ. Why? Because he thought that science was opposed to faith in Christ, faith in God. Today, he's a follower of Christ because he understood, first of all, that science and education are not anti-Christ, anti-God. But that was an obstacle he had to overcome, and I pray that you'll overcome that obstacle as well. Because it's a lie. If someone tells you science and education are opposed to Christianity, they are lying through their teeth. It's false. Remember, 70 out of 100 first colleges, universities started in America were begun by followers of Christ.
Well, more people were Christian back then than they were today.
I'm sorry?
More people were Christian back then than they were today. And we decided to come up with, let's say 200 years from now, we had a leading university that were founded today. Chances are, I'm willing to bet that that person would not be a follower of the Christian dogma.
You bet. Fine. And there are many agnostics and atheists who have begun educational institutions. That's not my point. My point is, sir, that the dichotomy that some people create, that there's a contradiction between science and education versus Christianity, is a false dichotomy. Totally false. Johann Kepler, the father of modern astronomy, as he peers out into the stars at night, and you guys are good at astronomy here at the University of Arizona, Johann Kepler, the father of modern astronomy, exclaims, "Oh God, I am thinking your thoughts after you."
Yeah, the way I see it, we don't really have that great of sources for the life of Jesus, for pretty much anything from that time period regarding him. Even the Gospels were written a good deal afterwards. Isn't that maybe where the arrogance lies in claiming that your truth claim is more valid than other truth claims, especially when most of our evidence points to the contrary?
Okay. What's the gap between when Jesus lived, taught, died, and rose from the dead, and the first documents that were written? The gap is about 20 to 60 years. So you've got Paul writing Galatians and Philippians and 1st and 2nd Corinthians in the late 40s, early 50s, mid 50s, late 50s AD. So that's 20 to 30 years after the events. Ma'am, there is nothing from antiquity that even comes close to that kind of gap. The gap between the events that Herodotus, the Greek historian, wrote about is hundreds of years.
That's true, but we don't take what Herodotus said at face value. A lot of Herodotus is actually just literature that we take and go, oh, that's interesting, but don't really glean history from.
Yeah, and Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars. Good history.
Again, we don't place unlimited faith in those writings, though. It just seems odd to me when you approach something like the Gospels that are no more reliable than something like Herodotus, that you would ask people to place absolute faith in something
No.
fallible.
None of us has absolute faith. Who here has absolute faith? All of us struggle with doubt. Nobody has absolute faith. I've never met anybody who has absolute faith. It's a question of what does the evidence point to? And the evidence clearly points to the historicity of Jesus of Nazareth. And it's based on the gospel's historical reliability. Now, how do you determine historicity? For myself, I've got 4 tests. If you don't like my 4 tests, no problem. Come up with your own tests. But just be consistent as you look at all of history. My 4 tests are internal consistency, literary style, archaeological evidence, and manuscript evidence. First test, internal consistency, meaning by that, are there contradictions within the text that point to massive confusion on the part of the authors? No. When you read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you'll discover a tremendous internal harmony. Consistency. Second test, literary style. Is the literary style of the document once upon a time in the land of Nod, Wynken, Blynken, and Nod took a boat ride? Well, that's obviously fairy tale, once upon a time. No, the Gospels are not once upon a time. The Gospels are, at this time, in this place, with these people around, Jesus said this, he did that. It reads like the New York Times, the LA Times. It's clearly historical narrative. That's the literary genre. Third test, archaeology. Are we talking about Jesus being born in the island of Atlantis and playing with Mickey Mouse and Elmer Fudd? No. The Gospels talk about him being born in Bethlehem, growing up in Nazareth, at the time of Tiberius Caesar. Archaeologically verifiable places and rulers. Fourth test. Today, the New Testament in English is based on over 5,000 Greek manuscripts or pieces of manuscript, dated from the 2nd through the 10th century AD, all agreeing to an infinitesimal degree. So it's obvious that we have what the eyewitnesses wrote. Now, what gives us any degree of certainty that what they wrote is the truth? Well, what convinces that for me is they died for what they claimed to have seen. The eyewitnesses who saw Christ risen from the dead died for what they claimed to have seen. That gives their claim a tremendous amount of credibility.
A lot of people die for what they claim to have seen, though. I mean,
Really, give me one example.
Well, just off the top of my head, there's another Jewish Messiah in the 15th century, Shabtai Tzvi. Excuse me, that's not the example that I'd like to use.
Oh, I have a great example here.
Do you? Well, please jump in, Mike.
Well, according to the Shiran Peace Museum, 1,036 Japanese kamikaze pilots died in the World War II. Now, Are you believing that their beliefs were true because they were willing to die for them?
No, that's not what I said. What I said was the eyewitnesses who saw Christ risen from the dead were willing to die, not for a belief. They were willing to die for what they claimed to have seen. The dead Christ risen from the dead.
Okay, who are these eyewitnesses?
These eyewitnesses were James, Peter, John, Matthew, Thaddeus.
They're paraphrasing earlier works. They're paraphrasing Paul. And Paul wasn't around Jesus during Jesus' life. He came later.
John, Matthew, Thaddeus, Peter, all saw Christ risen from the dead.
Repeating yourself is not going to make it true.
Repeating yourself is not going to make it true either. You're absolutely right.
The fact is, history's on my side with this.
No, sir. Eyewitnesses, Peter, Matthew, James, John, saw Christ risen from the dead, and they were willing to die for what they'd seen.
According to Paul, they're just copying what he wrote.
No, the Gospel of Matthew, 1st and 2nd Peter, James. Clearly, these guys
based on Mark and Paul. These are secondary accounts. There are no contemporary accounts. None of these
James is an eyewitness, sir. He was a younger brother of Christ.
According to another person, this is a secondary account.
No, James wrote the letter of James in the New Testament. It wasn't written by Paul. It was written by James. Ignatius, Bishop of Antioch, Clement, Bishop of Rome, clearly talk about Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew. They quote him.
Yeah, they quote.
They quote the Gospel of Matthew.
Yeah, they quote the document. It's a second-hand account. That's hearsay.
It's not a second-hand account. Matthew was an eyewitness. Matthew saw Christ, saw him risen from the dead, and he died for what he claimed to have seen.
I'm just going off. I'm not an expert in the Bible. I'm just going off of what the best scholars in the field are going.
Sir, I can promise you can find many New Testament scholars who disagree strongly with each other. Obviously, so that's why you can't just listen to them. You have to go back and study the source documents. You got to go back and study Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and then you got to read the writings of the early church fathers. Like
Found no
Ignatius,
author.
Bishop of Antioch,
Attributed anonymous.
Clement, Bishop of Rome, Papias, Polycarp, Eusebius.
Oh, do you want me to go
You've got to
through those?
study their writings.
Oh, let's see. Nelis Phlegon is one of those sources, because these are all written pretty much at least a century later, with the exception of Paul.
Sir, how could the Gospel of Matthew have been written a century later if in 95 AD Ignatius, Bishop of Antioch, quotes Matthew?
Less than a century.
You're leaning on old scholarship.
Okay, so there's two that are within a century. That's not very strong
No,
evidence.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were all written within the first century. Jesus died around 33 AD. They are written within 60 years of his death.
It has to be.
They're within the first century.
Apparently we have something. Gosh, that's old information. 70 is our terminus post quam. It has to be written after 70 because the destruction of the temple is referenced. So,
Why does it have to be written after the destruction of the temple?
Because it references the destruction of the temple.
Right, but notice what that's doing.
I know
What you're
it's
doing
not
is
allowing
you have a
interpretation,
presupposition.
but-
You have a philosophical presupposition that says there is no such thing as prophecy, the ability to see the future. Therefore, for Jesus to say that the temple will be destroyed has to be written after 70 AD when it was destroyed. And that's obviously due to your philosophical presupposition of
And the
naturalism.
philosophical presupposition of everybody who studies history.
Is that not the default
Wait a
position that
second.
miracles don't have
Wait
any
a second. Wait a second. April 1865. Wasn't that when Lincoln was assassinated?
Correct.
All right. So if you read a life of Abraham Lincoln that does not include his assassination, don't you think it's wise to conclude that was written before April 1865? Because if I'm writing a biography on Abraham Lincoln and I exclude his assassination, his death, what's that all about? The evidence points to I wrote it before his assassination. Now, you've got the book of Acts that does not record the main character's death, the Apostle Paul.
Or
Therefore-
really written.
Therefore, it would be very wise to say, hey, the evidence is Acts was written before the Apostle Paul was beheaded. It was written before 68 AD or 69 AD. So you're right. The Gospels do not record the destruction of Jerusalem, do they? That is why it's wise to say, gosh, they were written before 70 AD.
Wait, they do reference it. That's the point.
No, they do not. They have Jesus making a prediction that the temple will be destroyed.
It can be written
But there is
after the
no
fact.
record in the Gospels of the temple being
His
destroyed.
body will be destroyed and then raised in 3 days. And then the Gospels later attribute this to the destruction of the temple, which they assumed he was making. That point is obviously a later attribution. Jesus says nothing about the destruction of the temple. He says his own body will be destroyed.
Yeah, that's a later interpretation.
Yeah,
No,
That was
that's
like,
not
that's-
true.
I mean, that's
In Matthew
not
chapter
figure out
24, in Mark chapter 13, and in Luke chapter 21, Jesus answers the disciples' question, hey, what's going to happen to this temple? And he clearly says it's going to be knocked down, not one stone will be on top of the other. And that's exactly what happened in 70 AD when the Romans came in and destroyed the temple in Jerusalem.